Hi, lovely to have you here. Welcome to the Electro Revolution channel. My name is Michael and I'm a car and tech enthusiast. In these series of episodes, we're going through a 2,000 kilometre road trip from Sydney, New South Wales to Phillip Island in Victoria. Now we've already gone through 3 episodes from the way up Sydney to Phillip Island, and we've already gone through 2 episodes on the way back from Phillip Island, 3/4 of the way to Sydney. If you haven't watched those episodes yet, I invite you to go watch them. In this particular episode, we're accessing the last charger we will access on the trip. It's about 5 hours away from my home, so it was a great fast charger at 350 kilowatts. I've documented from the beginning to the end. I really hope you enjoy this episode. To give you an idea now where we're at in this part of the trip. Now this is the Evity charging station you see at the bottom, and the next charging stop, which is a super fast charger, which I'll show you in the next screen, is the Ampol station in Tarcutta. And that's got an Evie charging station at 350 kilowatts. Now you notice the distance there. All right, if I tried to go to Tarcutta at the time that I was only on 26% with 135 kilometers or so, I wouldn't have made it. So I needed that Evity charger to get to this destination. Now if we look here, this is the EV charging station at the Ampol station, which was at Tarcutta. And what we can see here is 350 kilowatt charging. That is massive, especially in Australia. Now I know overseas, especially in China, you get much more than this, but this is a very, very fast charging system. Now let's take a look at the charging stop. Now this is the one I actually used, the right charger and the left charger. Now when I got here, it was very busy. I actually had to wait at least 40 minutes, but based on this charging stop, I wanted to charge it to 100% to get all the way back to Sydney, because I would make it on the one charge. Now if we look here, it's actually a nice, pleasant charging stop. It's interesting that this screen didn't actually work when I was there. I actually had to use the mobile phone Evie app. Of course there's a Tesla car, and there's only 2. I mean, I would have much preferred 5 stations, because this was very busy. When I arrived there, many people were there waiting at the additional parking spots right here. There were just rows and rows of cars, all on the left here. So nevertheless, it was a good charging stop, and yeah, I was very, very happy with it, and that's what these next videos will show. So here we're in Calcutta. This is close to home. It'll be about 5 hours, I guess, if we charge to 100%, which I'm intending to today. What we're looking at here is I can only film here. It's another EV charger. The EV charger screen is broken, so at least it charges through the app. I can see it, and yeah, this is a good thing. 137 kilowatt charging. It's actually very, very good. Something that's interesting is what we see here, 150.8. The fastest charge of this particular vehicle is 150 kilowatt. And these EV chargers in this particular station, they go at 350 kilowatt. So this is incredibly fast. Something I haven't experienced in this car yet, up until now, but I'm quite happy with it. What we see now is 151.1 kilowatts. That's well over what I expected that I'd get in this car. When we were traveling from Sydney to Melbourne, I did see 148 and 149 on a 150 kilowatt charger, but this is our 350 kilowatt charger, so it does support the higher speed, and I wouldn't expect this to be consistent, because what we do know is when it reaches about 70%, it'll drop to about 70-75 kilowatt. So this is a very, very good speed.
So right now we're almost done. It's coming to 5:45 and we've got 5 minutes left. We're charging at 44 kilowatts with 96% charge. So it won't be long now before we continue on our journey. So we're coming to the end. 21.3 kilowatt. It's saying 3 minutes left, but you never know. 99%. It may go up to the stage of calculating now, where that essentially sends every single cell to 100%, or it waits for all cells to go to 100%. Drop to 11 kilowatt with 1 minute left. 0 minutes. Come on. 100. Perfect, we're done.
At 100% charge, we can now begin our journey. But just before we do that, let's look at the bills, or let's look at the charges and costs involved with this particular charging session. Here's the first screen. As we can see there, $60.84. Now there is a GST component there if you're international and you're not sure what that means. In Australia, we've got a 10% flat tax that's put on all of the goods and services within Australia. Other countries will be familiar with that because we grabbed that, I think, from Europe. Nevertheless, here's the second screenshot. And what we can see there, the start time and the end time and the duration, 350 kilowatts of charging, and the energy included was 77 kilowatt. Now, considering it's an 82 kilowatt battery, that is a lot of energy to put in less than an hour. That's a fantastic result. So let's now move on to planning our trip home.
So this is what we've got. And now this is our traveling. So 3 hours and 50 minutes with 389 kilometers. Looking forward to getting home at this stage.
So we're now home off the last charging. And if you remember, the last charging was at 100%. So this is now what's left over from that 100% charge. I'm glad I charged it to 100% instead of the 80 that I was inclined to do, because I wouldn't have made it if I charged it to 80% at the time. So it's been a good trip overall. The trip back was actually a little bit more difficult than the trip up, and I'll explain that in a little bit more detail, but I did take it a little bit easier on the car driving back home. So I'll also explain that as I go through this video to discuss how I did things. But overall it was a good trip and quite enjoyable, and it's good to be home. So what we'll do now is talk about the charging stops that we took on the way back, and this is the screen that you see now. So the charging stop number one was the Evie 50 kilowatt charger, and if you remember, that was in Benalla. And then we've got the Evity charging, which was in Wodonga, and then we've got the Evie charging at 350 kilowatts in Tarcutta. Now you can see there, they do have different prices. Of course, the cheapest one was the 22 kilowatt. However, you look there at 40 minutes, I was only able to ingest 15 kilowatts of energy into the battery, where in a very similar time at 50 kilowatts, if you look at the Evie charger, 29 minutes, and I was able to do 23 kilowatts. So even though there's a slight increase in price, it's actually more worthwhile on these longer trips to perform faster charging. And if you look here on the last one, the Evie 350 kilowatt, you notice there it was 79 cents a kilowatt, which is quite dear in Australia. It's actually one of the most expensive. However, it was able to ingest 77 kilowatts in 55 minutes. So $60 or $61 is quite worth it. And you see there the entire trip on the way back cost $82. And that's not to say that we chose the cheapest charges or we chose the most expensive charges. We just chose random charges just based on our trip back. So that's for the trip back. Now, when we include also the trip forward, I've totaled that up in this table here. So the top row, of course, defines what we're measuring against. The second row, where it says subtotals, this one here, at $9.59, $5.96, and an average of 71 cents, with the charge out at 130 kilowatts. Overall, on the way up from Sydney to Phillip Island, was 2 hours and 12 minutes just in charging time. And of course, during that charging time, we were able to, if you remember, if you watched those first episodes, we were able to rest, sleep, have all the breaks that we needed to have, eat, and all that other stuff. So you can't say that the entire 12 hours and 12 minutes was dedicated to charging, even though we charged for that entire time, because it is the total charging for that entire time. We actually spent more time just doing what we do as humans. And that cost $89 for the trip up. And of course, we've got there the subtotals for row 3. And what I've done here is I've also added the trip home, which of course is included in this particular charge. So adding the trip home gets the most accurate distance traveled during that entire trip in the car. Now, of course, when we were at the resort, we did do traveling at the resort, but that's not included in these totals here. So the average cost on the way home was 63 cents, and that's contributed to mostly because of that Evity charger at the cheaper rate. The charge added on the way home was 116 kilowatts, and considering it's an 82 kilowatt battery, that's like a full battery and a bit, and it did that on both sides, both the trip up and the trip back. On the trip back, 2 hours and 4 minutes. Now, the reduction in time, of course, is contributed to by the 350 kilowatt charger, because I was able to get 116 kilowatts, and a good chunk of that was 77, based off the 350 kilowatt charger charging at over 150 kilowatts. And of course, that cost on the way home $82.93. So what we're looking at here for the total trip, both up and back, with 1,957 kilometers or 1,216 miles, that is considered a 2,000 kilometer trip, in my opinion. We've got an average cost of 67 cents that we paid. We ingested 246 kilowatts into the battery, of course, in multiple charge times. And the overall charging period was 4 hours and 16 minutes. Now, you can consider, if this is a gas car, that would be drastically reduced. You'd still need rest stops, you still need eating breaks, but not as long as that, of course. You wouldn't take 4 hours of eating breaks and breaks like that as a human being, but there would be a percentage of that, maybe 30%, I would say maybe about 1 hour, 1.5 hours, maybe 2 hours on rest stops, but not more than that. And the total cost for the trip, $172. Now, I'm not sure exactly how you would work out this sort of figure in petrol on an ICE car, but I would assume it's at least, at a very minimum, double. I wouldn't consider it any less. And of course, it could be more expensive, but I would say approximately double the price. So maybe about $340 at the very minimum to go up and back on the trip that I took there. So I hope this was informative. What I'll go through now is things that should be improved and my opinion of the trip up and of the trip back, and the details that I didn't include in the videos. Now, what was important to note, as I've said before, these were real world experiences. What that means essentially is we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world like this. Things happen. We need to adjust. We need to plan. We need to do these types of things and even plan for the unexpected. Now, I know that's difficult to say and do, but at least with videos like this, you'll know some of the things you could expect when traveling in an EV. Ideally, I think personally, hybrid cars would work best in this day and age, and the time I release this video, hybrids would work the best. They can do 900 kilometers, 1000 kilometers. They've got petrol facility or gas facility. You can fill them up anywhere. They go ahead and charge your battery pack within the vehicle. They'd be the most suitable for these types of long trips. And that's not to say I will never do an EV trip again this long. Certainly I will, but I'll be planning better for sure. Not going through the trials and tribulations I went through on the return visit. On the visit up there from Sydney to Phillip Island, it was a breeze, no problem at all. And that's specifically because, as I've explained, specifically because there was no school holidays, no kids, no family outings, people were at work. On the trip back, of course, the situation was different on a Sunday. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share this video or the series with people you know would enjoy it, or just leave a comment to say thank you. It really all helps and we appreciate it. Until the next series or until the next episode, I wish you the best and I'll see you there. Bye for now.